All right, we are live and rolling. Happy 4th, everybody. Happy 4th. I hope you all are having much fun in making this 4th of July a great day. It's great to be alive and it's great to be able to have the opportunity to celebrate. We're going to go on and get into what we have scheduled for today. And our topic is our deadbeat, our deadbeats jerks. Okay. Understanding the profile of a deadbeat parent. Understanding the profile of a deadbeat parent. Okay. And so what we did in supervision, we talked about this subject because often we talk about individuals who have experienced the brunt of having a deadbeat parent or having someone who has emotionally or sexually abused them or something like that. But in supervision, I try to leave it open to a number of experiences. I told them I didn't want to surprise them about, with this, but I said often we'll look at the abused, but many times we don't look at the ones who often perpetrate. Often we'll talk about someone who may have experienced sexual abuse, but little do we talk about the psyche of the pedophile or someone like that, right? In this case, we're flipping it a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about um, what about the person who is actually abusing? How do we help them? Well, not necessarily how we help them, but understanding the profile, which can help you to avoid as a therapist sometimes a little bit of countertransference if you've experienced that. So we played a video, and what I did, I played a video and I gave them a few questions and had them break up in groups. And this was another very pretty engaged session. It was so many different parts that I wanted to process. It was really hard for me to put it the way I wanted to. But my final group, it seemed like it all really came together the way that I wanted. But anyway, let's get to it. Let me write this time down. And I'm going to show you. A lot of you all may have seen this video before that I'm going to share, but we started off with this video. Actually, we started off with some test prep questions, but then we went into the video, and I told them, imagine that you had someone who just had a tough time keeping promises. And when we think about deadbeats, many times we think about individuals who make promises and can't fulfill them. They don't really seem interested or care about, care about, I can't read my writing, basically care about following up with the child that they have created. Sometimes they seem a bit entitled and just many times don't take accountability. Why does this happen? Okay, why does this happen? Have you ever thought about what's going on in their world? Why do they make so many promises and not follow through with them? I don't know if you experience having someone as a client that this is their personality, or in your own real world experience being connected or maybe not so connected with someone who constantly made promises that they just would not fulfill, unnecessary promises. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But for those of y'all probably seen this video, I'm going to play it and then we're going to kind of set the stage for the conversation.
Daddy out! What's up? Will, I'm glad you're here. Some business came up I gotta handle. So we're gonna have to put our trip on hold. You understand?
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Just for a couple of weeks.
I understand.
Yeah, maybe a little longer.
Yeah, whatever.
Look, I'll call you next week and we'll iron out the details. Okay?
Yeah.
It was great seeing you, son.
You too, Lou.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Will.
You know what? Actually, this works out better for me. You know, the slimmies of summer come to class wearing next to nothing. You know what I'm
Will,
saying?
it's all right to be angry.
Hey, why should I be mad? I'm saying at least he said goodbye this time. I just wish I hadn't wasted my money buying this stupid present.
I'm sorry. If there was something that I
Hey,
could
you know
do-
what? You ain't got to do nothing, Uncle Phil. Hey, ain't like I'm still 5 years old, you know? Ain't like I'm gonna be sitting up every night asking my mom, when's Daddy coming home, you know? Who needs him? Hey, he wasn't there to teach me how to shoot my first basket, but I learned, didn't I? Hey, I got pretty damn good at it too, didn't I,
Yeah,
Uncle Phil?
you did.
Got through my first day without him, right? I learned how to drive. I learned how to shave. I learned how to fight without him. I had 14 great birthdays without him. He never even sent me a damn card. To hell with him! I ain't need him then, and I don't need him now.
Will.
Nah, you know what, Uncle Phil? I'm gonna get through college without him. I'm gonna get a great job without him. I'm gonna marry me a beautiful honey, and I'm gonna have me a whole bunch of kids. I'm gonna be a better father than he ever was. And I sure as hell don't need him for that, because ain't a damn thing he could ever teach me about how to love my kids. How come he don't want me, man?
All right, all right. A very, very emotional scene. Great acting, by the way, with Will Smith, and many of you all have seen that. And I could see by looking at the screen that a number of it almost breaks me down every time I see it. There was, emotions. A lot of people can relate in some way with this character, but usually we're talking about maybe Will. But in this case, we're talking about the dad. And so let's get into it, you all. So what does he get out of promising and never following through? What is it that this man gets out of promising and never following through? Have you thought about that? A lot of times, and the question is a deadbeat a jerk? Or are deadbeats a jerk? No, they're not jerks. They're humans just like anybody else. They often it feels like you're dealing with a jerk for sure. It's kind of deceptive if they're not, because it certainly feels that way. If you're being promised things, or if you have a parent like I mentioned that, or a loved one or someone that um, and so we have to get in the mind of the client sometimes, whether if we're talking to somebody who has experienced this with somebody, but then also if this is your client that you're treating, what is going on? So what are they getting out of this? And it's important for us as therapists to understand what they're getting out of this. So I'm going to get into that. I'm going to try to stick with my notes so I don't go too long, but there is a level of a fantasy involved with the promise. We're talking about the promise today. The promises that you make, there's a level of fantasy. And what I did, I forgot to tell you, I actually had a scenario that I gave to the group, and they read off the scenario along with this, and it kind of gave maybe a description. And what it was is that this person in the scenario is someone who, let me see if I could pull it up real quick, someone who often makes promises, of course, doesn't follow through with it, um, has issues with the follow up. Okay. Let me see. Here we go. All right. So your client presents well, they're charming, charismatic, confident, and quick to say, I got you. He's the kind of person who volunteers first, makes bold commitments, and has a smooth way of convincing people he's reliable. But when the time comes to deliver, he rarely comes through, often without a phone call, an update. You saw he was about to walk out the door, right? And Will caught him. Or any follow through. As a father, he is known by his children to be inconsistent, arrogant, manipulative, and a deadbeat. He often appears well dressed. He's a leader, drives nice cars, maintains employment, but to his children, he is a no show. All right. He will occasionally show up with a small gift, expecting gratitude. Okay. We're profiling the client here and excitement, even though he has been MIA, missing in action. When confronted, he's casual, often has excuses. Man, things just got busy. Don't make this a big deal. Sounds like gaslighting. Don't make a big deal out of it. You know I still care. Then he smiles, pivots the conversation, and leaves people emotionally holding the bag again and again. So this is the client. Like, so what is it? If we're treating the client, if we're treating a relative that's dealing with the client like this, or dealing with a loved one like this, it's important for us to understand that profile. And again, there is something to the fantasy. Avoiding follow through keeps the fantasy alive. It's a fantasy. It's a need for the client. I mean, the individual, let's just say, as Will's dad in this situation, has a need to be gratified, but has no desire or intentions many times of really following up. And so the question came up: do they actually ever intend to follow up? And we got a lot of mixed feedback on that. Sometimes they may intend to follow up. But I love the way one of my supervisees, Jonathan, broke it down. Is he broke it down like this? He said that basically we're looking at promise versus action, and this is how this is the thing. You may not know it, but and it just seems like it doesn't make sense, but it's crazy. But when they make the promise, they actually create a debt for themselves, something that they're not intentionally creating. They create a debt for themselves. There's cost to it. But this person, we have to look at them in this eyes. They are so needy. If you looked at that character right there, they are so needy for someone to admire them, to see them in a great light, that they are more rewarded by the promise than ever following through. As a matter of fact, when they make the promise and somebody's eyes gets big and it's like, oh yeah, yeah, they're gonna do this for me. Jonathan explained it like this. He said it's almost like when you make a credit card purchase. Think about this. This is their psyche. Or not a credit card purchase, a purchase with a credit card. So you get something that you want. So at that time, you have that euphoria about this new thing that you wanted. It's expensive, and you're about to bring it home, and you're really excited about that. You were willing to do whatever you have to get that particular item. But guess what? After it's bought, it's almost kind of like paying somebody before they do the job. After it's bought, after you receive the reward of the gift, of the payment, then whatever good intentions that you had, no matter how great those intentions were, they seem to fade. Seems to not be that important anymore. And so now what's more important, instead of you following up on what you said that you would do with your son, is that you got a job to do. That's money that you make. The money that you receive, it'll make you look really good. It'll make you be able to fulfill some of the things you want to. And it's not, this is the crazy thing. It's not that they're just a jerk, but they're so insecure and so many times egotistical that the reward of a big job and promising to come through on that, promising to come through on something else outweighs. And so they get a heavy debt of promises due to promises, and each time that they make a promise, it's a burden to them, and many times they don't have any inclination or um intentions on following up. Because the promise is performative, it gives them that surge. So here we get the admiration. Wow, he's got connections. He can make things happen. Or if he suggests that, hey, I'm going to hook you up with something, I got somebody for you, or whatever. Power, he can make things happen. Relevance, he's central to what we're doing. Control over how others see him, and that's what their mentality is to control the way people see them. So that should say something to us right there. When they have this dire need for gratification and approval, a dire need for gratification and approval, a dire need to feel important. What's that echoing to us as we study inverses, as we continue to do these lives and we're talking about the inverses? What's that? What are we learning that's telling us? That's telling us that usually on the other side, if you have that much of a drive to get gratification enough to where you're willing to compromise, and you do compromise relationships, that's telling me that there's a great possibility that somewhere in your profile, somewhere in your life, you weren't rewarded. You weren't gratified. You weren't given the attention, or people didn't trust you. And so then you have that need for that. So anytime you get that, it's like a drug. It's like a drug and will cause you to be a deadbeat because you're searching for something. Um, and so if they follow through, again, this threatens the illusion. What's the real risk of following through? Now, this is a big piece right here. We got to process this. What's the real risk of following through? Why don't you just do what you said? So I use the example in the group, in some of the groups, is that how does it end up being a major situation if you ask me, you say, hey, you want me to pick you up some chips? I say, yeah, 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 I like that. That'll be cool. And all of a sudden, for one thing, you don't follow through with the chips, what we thought was a simple thing that you would agree to do. But what think about it. What's happening in the profile and the psyche of this individual who just doesn't follow through with a simple thing that they suggested? How can something that you suggested end up being a debt to you? A cost to you, a burden to you, when you were the one that made the commitment. That just doesn't seem right, does it? Well, let's read through this real quickly. Even with the chips, here we go. Being dependent on is a big thing. Being dependent on, he has now entered into a subtle relationship contract. Now that is scary because that means you're bound and you have an agreement, a responsibility to follow through. That's not good with this personality type. Following through is not their thing. It's scary, right? And I don't want to jump ahead. Someone is counting on him to do something, even something minor. Okay, here we go. For someone, here we go. What's the background? For someone with abandonment trauma or early emotional chaos, being needed can feel dangerous. But you're raising your hand, feeling needed, no matter what you see. We're getting to the psychology of it. No matter what you see can feel dangerous, like being pulled into an emotional trap. So now we got the emotional math. Being needed equals an emotional trap. Being needed, even though you're volunteering, you're getting gratification for that. This is so convoluted, right? So convoluted. Here's another one: being seen and evaluated presents the pressure. It presents the pressure of, what if I screw up? Just chips. How can you screw up going to get some chips? Well, I mean, this is how serious this is with the person, because you didn't get your chips, did you? So something happened in between them just promising to do a simple task and them not following up. This is what we're studying. If he gets the wrong kind of chips or forgets or delivers late, he risks criticism. Like, if this is chips, man. Like Iverson said, we're talking about practice, man. This is chips. Chips. But for the person who has been damaged in their world, any promise, any follow through may seem dangerous. Okay. Accountability equals fear of failure. So now we're getting down to it. This confident looking person, Will's dad, may seem very confident, may seem like he's got his stuff together, but deep down inside, he's a little boy who has a fear of failure. So something as simple as getting chips and following through with that, some way things get convoluted. Completing this task might expose him to other judgments. Can you believe that? You can't even get a bag of chips right. Maybe that was the type of criticism. That was crazy. I was looking at this video of Michael Jordan. His dad was saying something like, "Yeah, I asked Mike. I tell him to go to the shed and to get he said something of the nature. I tell him to go to the shed and get a screwdriver, and he come back with a hammer. And he's like, I just tell him, son, you're not gonna ever be anything. Wow, think about that. What kind of impact would that have on a child where the expectations are so high, or you have a fear of failure? I'm not going to get all the way into that right now, but I'm just provoking thought. Okay, 242. All right. All right. So, loss of control. By agreeing to fulfill someone else's request, even voluntary, he's now accountable to someone else's timeline or expectation. Now we're getting into a control thing. I didn't even ask you for chips. You said that you would get the chips. Now I'm controlling you. This is what goes on. We're just breaking it down. That threatens his sense of autonomy, which he equates with safety and survival. So even follow through equals feeling controlled. If I do this, they'll start asking for something else. So these are some things that he might say in in his head just for the chips. What is he telling himself? Why did I say I do that? They knew that they were busy. They're overcommitting many times and can't follow through. They probably don't even need it that bad. So now they're talking themselves out of it. So this is how they rationalize not following up on something as simple as the chips, not following up on something as simple as you said that you were going to come and visit me and take me somewhere and you didn't follow through. You're making excuses in your head. I've got more important things to worry about. Maybe that job. They shouldn't expect me to remember something that small. If they really wanted it, they would have reminded me. So all these things, man, we don't have time to get into it, but we've got into what is the likely childhood experience of that parent, how of that of the parent, like Will's father. How did we get into a way of thinking like this? Well, many times it's emotionally unavailable parents, emotionally unavailable or inconsistent caregivers. His caregivers may have been unpredictable. Warm one moment, cold the next. They may have been dismissive, like when he had needs and it was emotional as a child and began to cry, they would just say, "Stop crying," which caused him to learn to that expressing my feelings and emotions is not safe. Having feelings at all is not safe. Shame. Why are you so needy? He may have been asked if he was crying or had a need for something. So we learn to shut down that emotional exchange. Manipulation. You can get affection if you behave. So maybe a development of superficial relationship. Maybe this is why he makes the promise and doesn't follow through. Okay. So these are some things, man, that are really interesting. Now, I want to talk really quickly. We talked about a lot of things. It was hard to just compile, but this psyche, and I want to lean more to someone that's like Will's dad, that is a fearful avoidant dad. Now, this is someone who is on that quadrant of attachment. They don't trust themselves. They don't trust anybody else. These are the more difficult individuals to treat. What's the thinking here? And we're going to start with this. This quote was amazing, I thought. His nervous system likely associates relationships with vulnerability, humiliation, and control by others. We didn't talk about it, but his childhood, he was possibly around emotionally controlling parents or caregivers. His caregivers likely exerted tight control over his emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. Maybe there was hypercriticism for small mistakes. This is control. Okay. Guilt tripping or shaming for asserting independence. That's control. Using affection or withdrawal of love as behavioral tools. If you do good, then I show you emotional affection. You go out there and do good in the game. If you don't, you cut off. Inconsistent boundaries and rigid expectations. Caregivers have had unpredictable rules. He might have been punished one day for asking a question, but then ignored the next for not speaking up. So it's just confusion. All right. No space to explore and make mistakes. Broken promises by adults. Okay. So this is where we get to the point, like in this situation, if the person is avoiding, because, like, check this out, the emotional math here. If we have this person who has a nervous system that associates relationship with vulnerability, that means if I'm in a relationship, what he learned from the relationships he were in that represented love was that you can't be vulnerable. Or that when you in a relationship, you have to be vulnerable, and then you're up for humiliation or you're being controlled by others. Great relationships, a functional relationship, love equals this. So we look at the emotional math here. Let's look at it. Intimate relationships equals humiliation and control by others. Intimate relationships equals humiliation and control by others in his mind if he's fearful avoidant. So it's saying that his nervous system is associating a relationship, love, with control. So, how do you ever get close to someone emotionally when you think of the relationship getting as you get closer, representing humiliation and control? That's on the way. So, that's many times why there will be a silent sabotage or overt sabotage a relationship, or you do things that just screw things up because the closer it gets, that means that there's more for me to fulfill. There's more expectation. There's more of a potential for failure. This, you all, is the psyche of someone who who has had some emotional abuse or who has trouble with attachment. Relationships equal danger. Dependence equals the risk for betrayal or shame. All right. So we're going to end it there. That was a little bit of the discussion. Hopefully this gives you a perspective to see ways to have more of a display of empathy for individuals who actually seem like jerks or actually seem like they're irresponsible. Instead of seeing them that way as just irresponsible, deadbeats or what have you, maybe these are hurt people that now hurt people. Maybe this is a person who is riddled in guilt and shame, who really doesn't feel like that they could be a good parent. Maybe they are so desperate for someone to validate them that all they look for is making promises that they can't fulfill. And that's what drives them, even more importantly than having an intimate relationship with someone, because that would be scary. There is a reason behind the behavior. We call this psychic determinism. Everything has a reason. It's up to us to study and learn and determine the actions many times of what our clients present, so that we can help them to understand how to relieve themselves of anxiety, stress, and to learn how to build relationships that will last. I hope this is helpful. We're going to go on and end it. I hope y'all have a happy rest of your 4th of July. Until next time, we'll see you soon. All right. Bye bye.